I ask myself what's the difference between surviving and thriving. But maybe what I'm pondering is, how many days am I surviving?
Hello and welcome. Welcome to the Earth, Sea, Love podcast. This podcast is for and about women of colour and our relationship with nature. Hosted by me, Sheree Mack. The Earth, Sea, Love podcast is committed to exploring the experiences of women of colour with Mother Nature. We want to provide spaces where the hidden voices in the environmental and conservation conversations can explore their relationship with the natural world. Inspired by our time spent outdoors, we amplify the voices of women of colour, our stories, our conversations, interviews, photography, writing, and artwork. We'll be exploring our legacies, histories, and memories which have had an influence and effect upon how we perceive ourselves within the natural world and within the environmental and climate justice movements. Welcome to the Earth, Sea, Love podcast. The Earth, Sea, Love podcast is a space for women, feminine, and non-binary people who are Black, Indigenous, people of colour to explore their relationship with nature. Thank you. Hello. It is I, Dr. Sheree Mack, your host for the Earth, Sea, Love podcast. And if you can't make it out already, I am walking through Northumberland Park, which is the North Tyneside, after dropping off the car for an MOT, and I'm walking home. And I think this might be the second intro that I've tried to create for this episode, and that's nothing against the episode, I may add. It's just like sometimes, or is it all the time, I find it difficult to chat about the up and coming episode that this is, or introduce it, because in a way it makes me feel like I'm trying to sell it to you, you know, and I'm persuading you to listen to this episode, and I don't know, that just feels a bit icky for me. I've never been a good seller because I always find it's false, because, you know, I'm just doing this to get to that, you know, that sale or win or money or commodity, and it just doesn't sit well with my soul in a sense. So I'm gonna have to like rethink why I'm doing these intros, or what the intros are supposed to be like usually, because maybe I could look at it as like, hey, I'm just here to tell you, or to give you a little bit of a taste of what's coming up, and it's so much goodness. But even then, when I say that, I put on like a persuasive presenter voice, as if that's going to persuade you even more. Hey, you've pressed play already, so you already want to hear the episode. So why do I feel the need? Lay it on a little bit more thicker, get you all excited to be listening. Anyhow, walking home, last bit of blossoms on the trees, and yeah, it's a while since I've been in this park, even though it's on my doorstep. But I've been away, a bit of a retreat down south, dog and house sitting, and then coming back and then being a bit tired, coming off the high, you have a bit of low. And I'm really grateful to be able to have that time and space to allow myself that rest, that space to feel all the feels, man. Got some blue skies, but there's some clouds there, tinging white, but the majority are grey. Are you telling me that there's some rain? Why mention clouds? Because Anatalia Vallez, who is the guest on this month's episode, talks about her connection with nature and how it might have started through observing those clouds above, and how those different shapes, sizes, colours of the clouds could be used as a metaphor for her state of being whenever or whatever state that she found herself in. So I just love that. And yeah, so writer, actor, creative alchemist, Anatalia Vallez. And believe me when I say, it does give me great pleasure to present this conversation to you. And it's not like you're doubting me or I've got to prove myself to you. And I think that's where that intro comes into it, and try and persuade you. But believe me when I tell you that these conversations that I have are food to my soul. I have these conversations for selfish reasons, really. It's like I might know the people, I might have worked with the people, be in community with them, and it's like, oh my gosh, I just love that beautiful light that you're shining out to the world from your soul. And I want to get to know that light, that beauty, a little bit more, a little bit deeper. So that's why these conversations come into being. They're there to scratch an itch I might have within a certain theme or topic. So it does bring me great joy and pleasure to share these conversations with you. And in this conversation, I mean, Anatalia's young, but she comes to this world with so much wisdom. And we talk about nature, obviously, but what she says and reminds me of is like, trees are our ancestors. And that's something I forget. And I repeat that. Trees are our ancestors. Because that's something else we touch upon. The idea of repetition. Oh, hello, Mr. Robin. Repetition. And how we might repeat something. But when we're repeating it, we're moving towards something new. And Fluke Taylor there for that bit around repetition. But then, repetition feeds into remembering. And that's what this conversation is for me. A reminder that trees are our ancestors. Our ancestors and our family, we have to remember them. And that might mean going back to the roots, or the roots. And who has the roots? Trees has the roots. And I just love that cycle, that cyclical spiraling, circling back and around. And so Anatalia, as I said, is a writer, and we talk about her collection that came out during 2020, The Most Spectacular Mistake. And we're lucky enough, again, you say this, oh my gosh, you are so lucky that you are happened upon this, because this is happening now. Again, persuasion, sale talk, but when I say it, I mean it. Lucky that she actually, Anatalia, reads one of her poems from the collection, document it, and this episode starts off with a couple of lines from that poem. Then we have the whole poem in the middle somewhere, and then at the end stick a bit in, and maybe it's a repetition, same lines from the beginning, and maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit something you added in there, because I'm so leaning in to the power of repetition on a personal basis. I'm not even thinking about the work or the message I'm trying to put out there, but how repeating ourselves isn't a bad thing, because through the process we are growing, we are learning something new, we are becoming. I just love that. I just love that. Anyway, and I just like to say I am proud of the Sea Love podcast, because we are showing up. We made that commitment at the beginning of 2023 to release at least one episode per month, and so far 4 months in we have accomplished that with this one, which is dropping just at the end of April. So yay! I'm all for celebrating those small wins, those small achievements, because I say they all add up into something bigger and beautiful and whole. Ooh, there's a blackbird. So yeah. So halfway home probably by now. But I did do a few hills there, that's why there was some puffing and panting, honestly. But yeah, so maybe you're walking along listening to this podcast, or maybe you're at home sitting nice and cozy enjoying it, or doing other things, multitasking while listening. Whatever floats your boat, I'm just happy that you're here. So thank you once again for joining us on the Sea Love podcast. Until next time, take care. Bye for now.
Must forgive me. Earth Sea Love is coming out of hibernation, so I might be a bit rusty, but let's just chill and relax. How are you? Anyway, that's what I want to ask. How are you? How you been keeping?
Good, I think there's a lot to be grateful for in everything, all the little hiccups and life things. There's a lot to be grateful for, so
Yeah.
I'm holding on to that.
Yeah, I am with you on that score. I actually have a gratitude journal practice, which I do every evening, or if I miss it, then it's the next morning, but I have to touch it every day in that sense. It's a good reminder that there is a lot to be grateful for. Definitely. And I was trying to work out when we met, and it was with the winter tangerine, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah, I was just telling my sister about it. Mm-hmm.
And that was like, I want to say 2019, like May 2019. Some kind of singing and some dove was in there, wasn't there? Oh, wow. And that's a long time now. But I'm so pleased that I've met you. Welcome, Anatalia. As I start each and every conversation, I like to know where you are calling in from, where you're situated in the world, and if you can see any nature around you at this time, or your season even, if you don't mind sharing that so we can situate you.
Yeah. So I am in unceded Ahashman land. That's in the coast of California, the southern coast of California. It is surprisingly very stormy. It's cold, which is of the season, but it's been raining on and off a lot. And I love to admire the clouds when it's clear enough to. I think there is something so special. There's something so special about watching the clouds and noticing how there can be both really heavy clouds and really light, fluffy, you know, traveler clouds that are nice and some that are less inviting. I can see that like as a good metaphor for my life right now. It's like, oh, there's some heavy stuff happening, but there's also some sun and there's also some things to look forward to. So I feel like I'm really matching the energy of the season here.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And also with clouds, they are moving. I'm not sure slowly or fast, but there is change, you know. We know that change will eventually come. And to be in that state of accepting whatever comes is a really good place to be in, I think. Again, coming back to that gratitude, but again, also, I don't know, it means that you're present, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you for that. So California, all righty. Thank you for sharing your first publication, The Most Spectacular Mistake. But so that would mean, okay, you're a writer, but you're also an actor and also using creativity to create community. And also, I'm also thinking to find your voice and also to heal the self. So first, let's talk about, how would you describe yourself? What do you do? Or who do you be? I like to ask as well. Who do you
Yeah,
be?
I love that. I guess the little tagline is like a writer, actor, creative alchemist.
Mhm.
And creative alchemist has felt more and more resonant for me just in the last couple of years of how something will come up and I'm like, but I can make art out of this. Like there's always like a silver lining. Obviously, some art that you make is too personal and you don't want to share that, but that's like essentially what an artist does, right? Like takes whatever's happening in the world and tries to make some sense of it. And I think I do a lot of that in the performing arts,
Mhm.
which is there is like a pressure, right? To like then like perform or produce something and put it out there for other people to digest, to consume.
Mhm.
And I'm starting to find more boundaries in my creative work of like what's for me and what's for others, and how things that I create just for myself nourish things that, I'm like, just like, be patient with me, be patient with me. People don't realize how long it takes um, to produce something, to write a play. Recently I wrote and helped produce my own play for the first time through my MFA program. And it was really exciting. And people are like, what's next? What's next? And I'm like, hold on. I'm just recovering from all of that. So I'm still learning who I am and how I choose to show up in the world. Um, but I think that boundaries with like how much and where and how I give to others, like I'm a very giving person, but I don't want that to be like my personality trait.
Mhm.
I don't want that to be the assumption that I'm just here to give. And
Mhm.
I would also like to learn to receive.
Yes.
Um, that's where life is taking me right now.
Oh my gosh, so much richness there. Who I am and how I choose to show up in the world. I think that's what I'm going to pick up on there for now. The most spectacular mistake, 2020, it was Flower Song Press. And
Mhm.
in there, you've got a dedication to all survivors of violence. May we reclaim our power and our narrative. Yeah. So
Yeah.
this is a book that, and I've read somewhere that you're the first generation Latina in the USA and the first one in your family to bring out a book. I'm sure I've read that somewhere. So I want to know, what is your story then? How did you find your way into what you're doing now?
Yeah. So it actually connects brilliantly with nature.
Mm.
Because yeah, I think that that's where it kind of stemmed from. Ever since I was very little, I always admired nature. I was like, this is more fascinating than anything that I am gonna see on television.
Mm.
And I grew up, like I grew up like of that generation, like television is a babysitter. Like I grew up in the 90s, and there was just always something to watch and something to give your attention to. But I love, like I was saying, clouds. I love just like staring at things and meditating. I didn't realize it was a form of meditation until like my parents started arguing and things got really, really tumultuous in their relationship. And I got to see a lot of that unravel. And it was very hurtful, obviously. It was like the first heartbreak. And having to witness all of that and being very empathetic
Mm,
affected me a lot.
mm,
And as a child, you don't really know how to decipher what you've done and what other people's thing is. So it became very, very like, I don't know, just like personal and very dense and heavy. And I couldn't help not being emotional. Like
mm,
even when people would tell me like don't cry or like calm down, it didn't help other people's words. And so as a way of like reaching out, my mom would say your best friend are a paper and a pen.
mm.
And so I would write a lot. And now I look back and I was like, whoa, this kid was really depressed. But it was really important that I shared that, with something that wouldn't judge me, that wouldn't talk back to me, that wouldn't minimize how I was feeling as a child,
Mm.
and really like listened and took it in and accepted me for who I was and where I was in my life. And as I got older, people were like, "Oh, you should, write more. You should share this." And I think when I became ready, it was through a teen program when I was 17 that I published my first poem with them. And it took a while, but I think that that was like something that friends of mine really wanted, was like, I think a collection of your work would be really special. That's where, yeah, that's how this we come to this book. This is documented. The art thing, the ripped books of anti-immigrant narratives thing, the resistance thing, the building something from crumbs thing, the talk back thing, the generational trauma, the display of places gone thing, folded in 8 by 11 thing, the coming home thing, the homies who submit thing, the not only white men can be in galleries thing, the scoot over so my mom can see me in the back row thing. I ask myself what's the difference between surviving and thriving. But maybe what I'm pondering is, how many days am I surviving? I answer before the thought escapes my mouth. 7 days a week.
Yes, thank you. I think what you mentioned about alchemist, a creative alchemist, and how the creative process might be revealed to those that are close to you, but those people who are demanding more, if we think, you've had your end results and they want more, I don't think understand that creative process, the time and effort that goes into creating something that is ready to go out into the world. And then
Mm-hmm.
there's a two-pronged thing here. It's like, one, this came out during the pandemic. How was that? Did you have to get creative in a sense on how this reached the world? Because you couldn't have anything physical, to celebrate this, marking this achievement.
I had a lot of guilt come up
Mm,
and a lot of feelings of like guilt and like, who am I to be celebrating something? There's so much going on, like
mm,
in the US, we were really, really impacted by this, and it was really scary. We didn't know what was happening. There was not a lot of information shared, um, of like reliable information about what was happening. When my publisher was like, this book, it's coming out. And it felt very much, I make this analogy a lot about like having children, and I've never had children,
Mhm.
but this is as close as like as that experience to me. It's just like it's coming out, it's happening right now. Like you can't take it back. You can't
Yeah.
like undo it. Be like, no, please stop the publisher, like it's happening. And
Mhm.
so, my mom and my mom, bless her heart, she helped me with like helping me with like streaming stuff, and she's trying to figure out social media and stuff, and my sister's helping me with like visuals, and we're gathering together, and I'm telling friends of mine virtually, like, can we do like a book launch but make it virtual?
Mhm.
And I think we streamed it on Instagram, and then we shared a couple of things, and it was just friends of mine online. Um, the person who wrote or who helped me with the illustrations came through. His name is John Jairo Valencia. We were friends since undergrad, since
Mhm.
2012, 2013. We've been friends, and I really, really wanted to collaborate with him on this book.
Mhm.
And he's also a poet, so he read some poems and shared some thoughts. And we talked about the process of writing it and everything. And it was as intimate and special as it could possibly be, having it be virtual, obviously. And then a lot of press, like a lot of folks reached out to me because I realized the timing was oddly like perfect because so many people needed an outlet. Like
Mhm.
they needed something to read, something to give them hope or give them the capacity to like imagine a world where this stuff wasn't in their face, in the hyper reality of everything. Um, and so I got a lot of people buying the book and pre-ordering the book before the books even got here. So I sold out of that first batch of books that I was given, that I got from the publisher. So it was like, yeah, it was a lot of first times and learning how to mail things. I didn't I didn't sign some of the books, and people are like, why didn't you sign your book? I'm like, well, because it's a book. How am I going to write in a book? And I'm like, but it's your book. And it's like, oh, right. Like all
Yeah.
of these things that I was just coming to terms with.
Mhm.
And every time I look at the book, I'm reminded like, oh yeah, like this is something special and like kind of a time capsule of this culmination of so many experiences. And it's not the end, right? But it is a little treasure piece.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
yeah.
a marker. It's a marker on this journey of,
Hmm.
documenting your life, documenting others as well, which I really, really do appreciate. And you've mentioned community, and you've also mentioned listen. And listen is my word of the year.
Mm.
Yeah, it really is. And it's slowly coming to light. What do I mean like this? But I'm all right with slow. But it is a case of listening for me more to my inner wisdom. But then also listening to my ancestors because they've always been there, but I don't think I've been paying attention. Now,
Mm.
this links in with a number of things with your collection because you got it sections: root, core, heart, head. So you divided it up into these different sections, but then at the end, in a community calling, you have all of those words together, and it's repeated from the roots to the core, to the heart, to the head, from the roots to the core, to the heart, to the head. And I just love one, community calling; two, that it's a repetition; three, that is there's a sound quality there. I'm forced to listen. And something that
Hmm.
came up just recently, and it was for Luke Taylor, who says about repetition is not for nothing. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
She says it might be the same thing over and over again, but there's a subtle difference each time. It's the building, it's accumulating to get to something new. Yeah. And I love that idea of repetition because in the sense I used to think it was laziness and I thought, oh, I can't repeat it because I've already used that word, you know. But knowing that I'm building something new means that I've been leaning into repetition. So the question here is, in all of that, listening, community, repetition, and the ancestors. Yeah.
Mm.
I feel this is a rich area within your work that I think that you're drawing upon, that you're doing a call and response to, that you're bringing in. So I'm interested in how do you feel your ancestors are within this work, informing this work, and how maybe, you're drawing upon the natural world with your ancestors. Does that make sense? Loads of things are pulled in there.
Yes. Ooh, Sheree, I'm like, yeah, need a minute because you pulled in so many things, and I love that the repetition and
Mm-hmm.
how everyone is different, even though it's the same thing. That's how we pray, right? Like that's how many cultures pray, and that's what we do. Whatever we repeat, it's like we believe. Like our words they become thoughts, and over time they become beliefs. If we
Mm-hmm.
if we say them out loud, if we affirm them enough. Yeah, I think I had to have a lot of faith going back to like my childhood. I had to have a lot of faith because the cards were really looking pretty somber. And so I had to have a lot of faith that whatever situation I was in at home was going to get better and that I was going to be different. And it did, thankfully, and that's why I'm here right now and I'm here today. And there was also this profound faith. And I would look at outside, I would look at nature, I would look at trees, and I would be these trees have wisdom. Like these trees, this wind, like it can teach me something. And they are ancestors. They've been here longer than we have. And I have been very insistent with my parents now that I'm older, like teach me about them, tell me about them. What languages did they speak? And we've become a little bit more open about talking about those things. Um, but I really, really wanted to put a face to the energy that I would feel when it's just like, don't go there. Come this way, or like leave that alone, leave that person alone. You know, all these kind of little subtle things that the more that like you said, like when you start paying attention, you're like, oh yeah, there's something here. There's something here to explore. They've always been with me, I
Mm-hmm.
feel like, you know, they're the foundation. They're the reason why I I came into this world. Like I'm the first really. There's a poem or there's a piece where I say something about being an anchor baby, and that's, a derogatory kind of term that was used as like people that come to this country without papers, they have a baby here, and that's like their anchor, right? So that now that they can't easily be deported. And I was that anchor baby, but at the same time, I'm reclaiming that as like I became that anchor. I became that like you cannot take something from us so easily because we come from somewhere. And the more that I get to know my roots, the stronger that I feel if someone dismisses my work or someone doesn't agree with my methodology or something like that. I'm like, okay, that's not for you. It's helped me navigate so many places where I don't feel as intimidated as I used to be walking into spaces where I quote unquote didn't belong, because it's like nature belongs everywhere
Mm-hmm.
all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And we have all these elements in our bodies, from through the stars and nature. We were like made up of water, right? And what do they say about water? Like if you speak to it with kind words, like it changes the water. Like how is it that we're speaking to ourselves when we're made up of so much water, right? We have all the elements within us. And because I think of the elements as and nature as ancestors, and we have the ancestors like living within us, And it's such a powerful message that I repeat this to myself, that I'm never alone. You know, even in my loneliest thoughts and everything like that, I always have these resources now. Now I have these resources, and I can get this book whenever I feel lonely, you know, and remember, a lot of these poems were channeled through my ancestors. And so, yes, they are words that were published and they have my name, but I honor them as well. And whenever I feel that disconnection, I can always come back and remember why I do the work that I do, and that this is for the next generations too.
True. Totally true. Yeah. So much wisdom there. And again, saying you can always come back to the work, you can always come back to the ancestors, always come back to that root. That is repetition also. And in that remembering, I say, you know, we see circles in nature, but then also there's that spiral and that cycle, which we see in nature and which we actually do throughout our lives. So thank you. Thank you for unpacking such a meaty question there so beautifully. Just a few more questions, if you don't mind. I'm not on Instagram anymore, but I see that you've got homies who submit. Is this your creation, and what is homies who submit? Because I see this as definitely something for the future that you are building upon.
Yeah. So I'll share with you a little bit of what's been happening with my Instagram. I can't log in to my personal Instagram, Sheree. So I'm like, this is a great thing to bring up with you because
Oh
I
my
can't log in. It's been days and I can't log into my personal Instagram. So I was teasing my friends and telling them like I'm having a little bit of a social media. I'm having a little bit of a social media identity crisis.
gosh.
Like I'm like, who am I on social media if I can't respond to things, you know, people sending me things, and who am I now? Like, what do I do? Do I just like exist in the world and not in the virtual world? Like it was like really trippy. But I do have access to the Homies Who Submit page, and it's was inspired by, yes, it's inspired by a joke that I made with my friends, because shout out to Women Who Submit. A friend of mine, Sochil, wrote, I mean, she has like grants out and stuff like that to, it's like international now, to have little cohorts of groups of women and non-binary folks to help them through the submission process, because that was a big thing. Like a study came out and somebody made a study and was like, oh, well, women are not as likely to submit to things, so that's why they don't get published. That was the excuse that was made. And so
Uh-huh.
she took it upon herself with a lot of other women to um, you know, increase the amount of women that are submitting and resubmitting and, you know, going through that, which is it's such a process of submission, agents and all that writing process. And so I was talking to a couple of friends of mine, and I was like, that'd be so funny if we had like something like Homies Who Submit. That was a lot more like, come on, like you've been writing for like 10 years. Why don't you want to like publish something? No, no, no. Like, you know, kind of like, be that little bit of a nudge of like, we also belong in there, even though we struggle, you know, sometimes friends of mine, we struggle with like the writing process, or calling ourselves writers. And so it's in one of the poems in the book, documented for the homies who submit. And I think that that's always going to be definitely an evolution, it looks like, of collaborating with other folks and maybe putting together a zine or something in the future,
Mm.
featuring folks. But yeah, we've gotten maybe like 5 people get something published through homies who submit, and it's March 1st right now, so that's pretty cool.
That is cool. And it shows, though, doesn't it, that it works having that
Mhm.
cohort or community which are giving each other a nudge and submitting. Yeah, there's something about saying, oh, they're not they're not getting published because they're not submitting. And there's something in that. But the thing is like, if you look and you're not seeing yourself being published there, then for me, it's naturally thinking like, it's not my place to be submitting to them because I can't see myself there. And so it's that chicken and egg 22 sort of thing, isn't it? So to have that freedom and also support to actually submit to wherever, I think that is definitely the way forward, and not to put those limitations on ourselves, and also to diversify and get more equitable representation in so many different publications. So way to go, way to go. And just like we're going to be finishing up soon. So I just want to say, if you want to add anything about future offerings or what's really happening in your life at the moment, because you did mention that you've just put out that play. And I want to say, was it something about sirens?
Yes, it was about mermaids. It was about Latina Chicana mermaids.
So yes, I was just thinking about the future. Have you got things that are coming up, or things that you're excited about, or what you're working on?
Yes, I would love to find a new home for that play. Hopefully, I'll be graduating grad school in May, and then sort of hit the ground running with that, with other things. I have a piece coming out in Persimmon Review. I have several little workshops that are coming up in April. A feature, it's going to be the third anniversary, I can't believe, of the most spectacular mistake. So I'll be reading in Tustin, California for that. There might be some other stuff also popping up for April. It's National Poetry Month here.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would say like follow me on Instagram, but I don't know how that's
I
gonna pan
know.
out. But I have
That's
a Substack. I have a Substack profile,
okay.
anatalia.substack, I believe, and it that is a really great way for people to like see what I'm up to. I regularly update that every month or every so often. And it's like a little blog post. Sometimes I'll share a poem in there, things like that. And it's just a good way for me to, because a lot of friends, they are checking their emails, but they're not on social media. So it's a great way, to bridge that. So
Definitely.
hopefully we'll keep that going.
And if you share me the link, I will put it in the show notes, so it'll go out with this episode.
Perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I'd just like to say thank you for your time. It was really good to eventually sit down with you and talk about this amazing piece of work that you managed to get out during a pandemic, but which I connected with from body point of view, and to have that interconnection with nature. I think that was really strong for me while reading this collection. So thank you for that.
I ask myself, what's the difference between surviving and thriving? But maybe what I'm pondering is, how many days am I surviving? I answer before the thought escapes my mouth. 7 days a week.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheree.